Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 290 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to work on researching the last few things that we need to before we start working on titanium. Enjoy. Well, while we're waiting on all of this, it's kind of a couple of boring researches because we're not really going to be making any of these special bullet types for now. Basically, I'm just doing it to consume some resources here. And I did see that we made a brass request, so hopefully, once this clears out, it looks like it had a buffer in the storehouse here, that we will start to use some more of our zinc. And it looks like this method is running because it's actually based on if we have too much tin. And we don't, so that shuts off. This brass level will go down until the secondary method turns on. And since both use zinc, we're not really prioritizing one over the other. At least related to the zinc, it's just the tin. So it's always going to use zinc. And that's running using up a little bit more zinc. And how much do we have in the warehouse? 8.2k, so we're pretty close to being done with our zinc overload. So our robots are going to go crazy trying to help out here, but you see that we pick these up and suddenly gathering is beginning again. But I also kind of want to help by just picking up the ore manually. And instead of replacing every one of these turrets, I kind of don't feel like it. So let's just kind of walk around and pick some stuff up. Oh, we're actually out of battery charge. It lasts so long I wasn't even paying attention. Whoa. Nickel is at 79,000. Does that mean we're not overloaded on it anymore? We aren't. Of course we will be. Very shortly, because all this stuff fires up now that nickel isn't overloaded. But we are starting to produce resources again here. And overloaded. But it means we're getting closer to getting all that fixed. Any other giant repository of orbs? Yeah. At some point I'm going to need to give up on those gathering turrets, but I just want them to work. The fighters have created a land bridge with their corpses. Okay, well we're done with those researches, so we might as well start the next ones. At least the ones we have access to. Let's do yellow, which requires sulfur and coal to make the goo. And this makes high explosives, which might actually be something we would want to make. Because although it's less direct damage, because I think we're doing 16 plus the additional, it's explosive, and almost always when you're shooting, there's more than one fighter nearby. So that might actually be something we'd want to make. We'll get the shotgun shells, and there's also an additional one. The artillery shells as well. 1,000 damage and 900 explosion. That seems like a lot. It is. It's way more than the standard shells. It's like twice as much. That's pretty insane. Well, it's going to require a lot of yellow goo, but that might be something we want to pursue at some point. And then green requires the nitric acid. It looks like it also makes some cannon shells, but that'll make poison bullets. I guess we'll have to wait to put the cannon shells in there. What in the world is that? There's something there. It's shooting. Also, the gathering turrets are gathering suddenly. So, I wonder if it is based on when fighters are killed in their vicinity. But how come they're not activating normally then? How come they waited for me to do that? Oh man, there's all these orbs out here from all the nests that were destroyed from forever ago. Are we getting close to being done here? Still waiting, it looks like. Because we still have a couple hundred of these accumulators in here, and then once they're done, all 3 of these will run at the same time. Okay, any orb collections down here? Seems like there would be. No huge collections. Except for that. Then I guess there is some down there. Oh yeah, and up there too. Okay. And replacing them makes them work again. Of course it does. Okay, we got that done. Let's hit the artillery shells. And then we just have the red goo, which is naphtha in fuel oil. To make flame bullets. Flame shotgun shells. And napalm artillery shells. Seems pretty good. Set the biters on fire. Okay. And when we do that, that should be basically the remainder of all of those researches for now. So after this, there isn't much we can do about trying to consume resources, at least with military packs. We just have to hope that this thing balances out over time. And we're very close to not being overloaded on zinc anymore. Looks like we're just about run out of lithium-ion batteries, so our accumulators are going to have to wait until we have more. We will slowly be making the cobalt through the crystallizer, so it doesn't really matter what we're doing with the factory. As long as we're making a little bit of slag, we'll be making a little bit of cobalt as well. The limitation of cobalt hasn't actually hit us yet, because there's still, quite a bit of it in the warehouse here. So it's probably safe just to move on and play it by ear. As long as we have blue belts and blue inserters, and we're still making our accumulators, then we're doing okay. And I've noticed that we've been building up crushed stone, that we certainly use some of it to make mineralized water, which helps in making plastic, which I think we're basically out of. Yeah, pretty much. It's running at full blast, essentially. Well, on one hand, it's kind of a problem, but on the other hand, we don't really have enough cobalt for it to really make a difference. So I don't really see the need to upgrade this right now. So since we have a surplus of stone, I suppose we can start laying some concrete down again. And we do have some bus lines here that we don't want to hit. But the refined concrete is working its way up, so we're doing alright. Place it right here, but we don't want it to overlap. And just lag the computer. And it is nice that in the process of placing this, I'm forced to fill up the logistics holes in the network. So as we are slowly working our way up the factory, we have less and less blind spots. Because just doing the whole factory in one go and trying to fix all of the blind spots would be pretty monotonous. So doing it every once in a while for concrete feels a little less monotonous. So that probably is going to send a huge amount of drones to do this, assuming they're available. Oh yes. Couldn't see where they were, but they were all in one giant stack. Because I guess they were all stored down here. We probably want to keep going, because we do have 100,000 concrete just kind of waiting around here. Gotta hit the islands too. Something like up through these train stations ought to be good for now. I did want to take a look at this concrete, system here and see if we can use blue belts to make it any faster. Well, one thing I've noticed is that this seems to not run very fast at all, but I think it's because each one holds 1,000 concrete, so these ones in the top are running way faster just because of a huge buffer. So that's kind of why it looks like this whole thing isn't really running. Because if we select it, we're making 33 a second, and this down here basically consumes more than that. So that's why it's kind of weird like that. But that huge buffer could mean that we could make large amounts of concrete quickly. So replacing this with blue belts would probably help a little bit. So at least while we're bursting, we'll have a 50% increase in concrete output. Almost. Let's see, we need more iron rods. Is this a limitation on belts? No, it just seems like machines. But we could probably place another one right here. Although there's a lot of flying robots here, it's hard to see. I think we can put it right here, because there's actually some extra belts right here. There's so much going on. So many robots. Are we using all of them? Actually, not quite, believe it or not. And replacing these with the blues would probably help a little bit. Might as well upgrade this whole thing too. So that should be a little better. It might still be a little slow in areas, but it seems like it's keeping up okay. And it doesn't quite cover everywhere, but we'll just let them do their thing for now, and then we can cover up the empty spots when we get to that point. Since our factory seems pretty good, I guess we'll do some more research to move it along. We've still got some blue research to do, and I'd rather kind of complete it all before we start jumping into pink and purple. We finally can do ducts now, because we were waiting on titanium, which are just very fast version of pipes. But they're kind of annoying because you have to put things in and out of them, so it's not quite as convenient as regular pipes. You might think of them kind of like coils, where you get higher throughput, but there's an extra step involved. I don't really see the need to research this stuff right now, just because our factory is doing fine without them. And we would have to basically rebuild entire buses like this in order to get ducts in. So I don't really see any reason to do that so long as the factory is operating normally. The second we run into some kind of throughput limitation with pipes where ducts would help, then sure. And honestly, keeping it on here on this list kind of reminds me that it exists. So we'll leave it on there, even though it's a dead-end research. It would be nice to get rid of it, but I'll leave it on there right now to remind myself that it's there. Well, we can do Algae Farm 4, the highest tier of Algae Farm. It's faster and takes more modules. And specifically, it gives us access to the blue algae methods here. So what blue algae does is you put in sulfuric wastewater and carbon dioxide. And it's kind of interesting that you're using sulfuric wastewater as an input to get your blue algae, and then you get ammonia. So it's a way of generating ammonia that doesn't require that you make hydrogen first. And generally, nitrogen's pretty easy to have. You'll probably have more than enough in your base. You're throwing it away, basically. So this is the natural way of doing it, and it's really interesting because it uses sulfuric wastewater, and normally when you have too much of that, you just have to dump the sulfur wastewater. But here's an application where you can actually use it for something. But our factory's doing okay, but honestly, ammonia is used to a large enough quantity in a lot of recipes where it might be worth having on a pipe bus like this. But I don't really see a need to upgrade it right now just because everything's working fine. But nonetheless, it'd be nice to have access to it and, you know, make those better farms, so for when we need those, we will have them. We got plastic too, which is naphtha and polyethylene. We might be going into alternate methods of making plastic if we're just critically short of it. Kind of like we are now, but because cobalt output is so slow, it doesn't really matter. But we'll take it, just to complete some research here. And there's the resin version as well, which needs melamine gas and formaldehyde gas. We don't need to do any extra resin, but we'll grab it anyway, so we have something available to us. And I think I've been waiting on vehicle equipment, just because the The fusion reactor is kind of OP, like a 4x4, but it makes 15 megawatts. Basically, this would make the crawler insane. But I'll just research it now. I probably won't put it in there because it seems a little OP, but it clears up the list a bit. Then there's electro refining. I don't remember if I talked about this before, but I kind of skipped it. So basically, this is tier 4 of processing ore mixtures. We actually could have done this when we were doing tier 3 ore sorting. And the reason why I didn't is just because I didn't think that it was available. Because I was thinking, oh, we're doing tier 3. There's no point in thinking about tier 4 because we can't do it. But we actually could have. But the benefit of it isn't very much. So you see how your input is 9 ferrous crystals, and then you get 9 as an output? That, yes, this would be something that could make cobalt, but the problem is it still makes nickel. So it would still cause nickel problems, and it does give a little chrome, which is nice. But you can see how this really isn't that useful because we'd be back where we are now, where nickel is overloaded. And with cupric, you would basically get a little extra silicon in there. So it's slightly useful. Probably the biggest use of it is if you combine both of those crystals with crystal catalyst, you can directly make thorium. So that's probably the main use of this. It's interesting that it locks chrome, so I guess we'll have to research it at some point. But the idea here is you take your ferrous dust, which is the tier 3, and you mix them with the tier 3 crystals and acid to get a slurry. And then you mix that slurry through a ceramic filter, and I guess it has to be a ceramic filter, with purified water to get the concentrate and wastewater. Then with that concentrate, you add ferric chloride solution to get your slag and your anodized ferrous concentrate and sulfuric wastewater. And then finally, you can turn that into crystals. So it's like so many steps. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then of course the sorting, but that's separate. So that's a lot of extra steps for just a small benefit. We will do it at some point, but it's just not very useful right now. So I won't add it into the list. Then there's titanium processing, but that by itself unlocks a lot of stuff, so I kind of want to save that for last. We can do offshore pumps. I don't think we're making pumps on the bus yet. It might be worth making them since we do kind of use them a bunch, but we'll see here. It does use titanium, but it's just a faster version, and 3,600 per second is almost certainly going to be a limitation of pipes, but what can you do? Exoskeleton equipment, we don't really use those because we have our character upgraded with the quality of life mod, so it basically we've researched our character to be running really fast, plus we have refined concrete everywhere. But nonetheless, that's just a faster version of that, and we can make it because we have the green circuits. Then we can, I haven't used it yet, but we can use a train upgrader to automate the upgrading of trains, and that probably will come in handy pretty soon. But for now, I'm going to skip it. And that's just an infinite research. So it looks like the last thing here, besides going into titanium, would be steam turbines, which are basically like regular steam engines, but more compact. I don't think there's an efficiency increase. I'll have to check on that. But basically think of it like a really powerful steam engine. And then we have all of that in there. We didn't really unlock too many machines, but since I'm thinking about it, let's see if we can do the blue algae and then some offshore pumps. And then while all that goes, it'll be generating more slag, which is generating more cobalt. And why am I flying? There was a teleporter right there. So we can go to our array here. Pretty sure we've got algae farms in here. Yeah, we do. They're right there. So if we do another one down here, we can continue it. So let's grab that and put it right here, but we don't need that. Switch this to, and that's all the stuff we researched. We could put the better gun turrets on our bus, but I don't really think there's a use of that right now. Just because our wall is holding fine, and I feel that when we expand the walls would be a great time to upgrade the turrets while we're there. Oh yeah, we do have the better crystal saw blades, but that really only saves us a little bit of iron with the blades. Probably want to save that for when we upgrade wood processing, if we ever get to that point. Because wood's held out for probably 200 plus episodes now. But there's our new algae farm. Oh yeah, we don't have the red inserters anymore. Guess we can upgrade all of these, but I don't think it really matters. And since the robots have to move all of the items across here, we can just directly attach that. Set that to Algae Farm 4. That's set to 50. So we'll set this one to like 10. I think that's what the other ones were set to. Yeah. So we just have a supply of the final tier. And it's pretty inserter limited here, although it's almost keeping up, which is kind of amazing considering all the parts that go into that. Okay, we wanted to do some offshore pumps too, because that is one of those things that we've just been handcrafting this entire time. And it looks like they're all pretty similar. Iron gears, steel gears, titanium gears. I don't know if we want to try to do something in line with belts, or if we just want to use these here. I did see titanium pipes, though. So, do we have a better type of pipe available to us? Interestingly, no. Then how do we make those? So we have titanium pipe. I guess we can make the pipes? But not anything else? Or does that just come from titanium processing? It looks like it. Okay. So we would just need to do titanium processing first. So just the position of that item is in a slightly weird spot. So we'll wait on that. Well, we're just about at the point where we're going to be making titanium items here. So I suppose we should make a request and then nuke our titanium supply. Which means that titanium and cobalt might be fighting for resources, but I don't know if there's really a way to avoid that right now. But we need the titanium. So we'll set the plates to go over there. Configure this for the plates. And then negative 512. Looks like research has slowed greatly down, so I guess we got through the buffer of science. 'Cause there's always a bunch of it to start with, and then everything gets kind of slow. I guess we could upgrade a lot of these machines, but research speed really hasn't been a problem. You know, most episodes just have this being idle, so I don't see a need to upgrade it right now. Looks like we're about to make a ton of circuit board requests. I think that's another Invar, which would be nice. And still have our 33,000 of those coils, and they're just dripping away. Very, very slowly. So it's going to take a long time to go through all of those. Well, LTN will make the request eventually. And I notice that we are almost done with our array here. And now we've cleared out enough of the accumulators to where our capacity is just increasing. So we'll probably go a little bit higher. I mean, this is in kind of a weird spot. I wouldn't terribly mind just using all of it and going up like that. But, alright, there's our titanium request. And there's the train. So it pulls in and starts getting requests. So we could upgrade these inserters, but so far the trains have been fine, so I don't really feel like going around the factory upgrading those just to later get better inserters and then want to do it again. I feel like Factorio's kind of, it's less about being perfect and it's more about just fixing problems. So it is important to be proactive and to find problems you can fix, but at the same time, you don't want to be inventing problems just so you can fix them. If it works, it works. And we have all of these better modules. I don't think this is necessarily as fast as it should be for this, because with an input of 72 and it's designed for 60, it would produce 720, so this should be able to consume 600 fluid a second, and it really doesn't. It probably can keep up with our current output, but at the same time, do we really need to go crazy and upgrade this when later on we're just going to be able to do coil form that's going to be a lot more compact? So it's kind of the same thing, where don't invent problems where they don't exist, just see how it works. But luckily, using all these productivity modules, though, will dramatically reduce the consumption. And that probably was a big problem in the beginning, where we basically used, like, probably like 50% more resources than we actually had to, because we weren't using productivity modules in these. Alright, research is done. Well, now that it is, I can double check those turbines. So yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any efficiency increases. They're both 465 degrees max temperature. It's just the standard steam engine uses 30, And the steam turbine uses 60 and produces twice as much power. So it's still useful because it's more compact. Might as well go through here and get rid of all of the extra little things that we've researched. Make sure I haven't forgotten about anything. Could put personal lasers on our person, I guess, but that's kind of, that's a thing you want to do when you have permanent power generation, like fusion reactors, basically, because otherwise it's just going to drain your batteries so fast. Better trees. We can grow swamp trees there. Different liquors and better pulp, but we just don't use paper that much, so it's not that important. And we do kind of want to do those explosive shells eventually, but they are going to use the alien artifacts. So we're probably going to have to make alien artifacts from cellulose paste and powder if we make any significant amount of those shells. So for now, I kind of want to not get distracted by them if we don't really need them. Oh, that's so many robots. Yeah, they're nowhere close to clearing out all this. That was a big buffer. But now it looks like we're starting to have to make more of the titanium. And running low and trashing the bus, but that is how it works. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to get started on titanium, but more importantly, fix a huge power shortage of the factory. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.